star twinkling in the sky. When the shadows disappear, you know love is passing by. Let your eager heart embrace it. When it's gone, you can't replace it. Just the pressure of a hand tells you more than words reveal. Something makes you understand. It is different, it is real. Love may come but once, so don't deny. Take your love before love passes by. Take your love before love passes by.
Good evening, and thank you for joining me for this special edition of Veiled Mysteries. Welcome to part one of the Idaho 4 murders. As always, thank you for subscribing down below. Make sure to hit the bell notification down in the description to be notified every time we are live. Over the next couple weeks, we'll be taking a comprehensive deep dive into the high-profile King Road murders that took place just blocks away from the University of Idaho in November of 2022. We have live studio coverage with Veiled Mysteries chief correspondent and legal analyst Taylor Edwards to break down the crime, look into inconsistencies, and give a minute-by-minute playbook of the fatal night that led to the deaths of Kaylee Gonzalez, Madison Mogen, Xana Kernodle, and Ethan Chapin. The following program may not be suitable for younger audiences due to the nature of these crimes. This episode will include crime scene photos, forensic evidence such as fingerprints that may include blood and disfigurement, and first-hand accounts of what was seen by investigators when they entered the crime scene. As always, viewer discretion is advised. Part one of the Idaho 4 murders begins right now.
Due to the heinous nature of the crime discussed in this episode, this program may not be suitable for all audiences. This episode will include graphic descriptions of murder, crime scene photography, and sound bites some viewers may find uncomfortable. Viewer discretion is advised.
The home of the University of Idaho has been shaken up by the deaths of 4 students.
4 college students found dead. The photo they took together just hours before they died.
In the small university town of Moscow, Idaho, a massacre of 4 college students in the middle of the night so horrific, the coroner is still processing what she saw.
You've got a front door that enters onto the basement floor.
48 hours after the middle of the night stabbing deaths at 1122 King Road, Brian Koberger was on Amazon shopping for a K-bar knife and sheath.
I need someone to repeat the address for verification.
The address, 1122 King Road.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Veiled Mysteries, episode 1 of the Idaho 4 murders. I'm here live with Taylor Edwards, Veiled Mysteries chief correspondent and legal analyst. Thank you, Taylor, for joining us today for this very important series that we are running.
Of course, I feel like this has been in the making for so long now. I have studied on this, and we debate on this topic and this murder all the time, so I'm excited to bring it to everyone at home, and it's going to be great.
Yeah, it's going to be a really interesting series. Obviously, this crime has so many inconsistencies in it, as well as just the brutality of the crime in general. We are going to cover minute by minute of what happened that night, and then we're going to kind of get into, in our future episodes, talk about the perpetrator, possible theories, and things like that. So let's start off with the actual crime. So Taylor, let's walk through the beginning of the crime.
Okay, well, first I'm actually going to give a little overview of who was in the house, who the roommates were. So we first have Kaylee Gonzalez, She was a 21-year-old senior at the University of Idaho. She did live in the King Road house for a little bit, but she had moved out. She had come over on November 12th, 2022 to show Madison Mogen, her new car that she got, and she brought her 11-month-old mini golden doodle, Murphy, with her. They ended up going out that night because it was the last football game of the season, and because she was so inebriated, she ended up just staying over with Maddie. The next roommate we have is Madison Mogen. She was also 21 years old, a senior at the University of Idaho. And her and Kaylee were best friends from whenever they were younger, and they actually chose to go to this school together so that way they didn't have to go apart. Then we have Xana Kernodle. She was a 20-year-old junior at the University of Idaho. And finally, we have Ethan Chapin, who was also a 20-year-old. He was Xana's boyfriend, and he did not live in the King Road house, but he was there quite often. And then the 2 surviving roommates we have are Dylan Mortensen, 21 years old, and Bethany Funk, 20 years old. So the night of November 12th, 2022, I have a pretty hour-by-hour, minute-by-minute timeline. So First, we have the night before the murders on November 12th, 2022. At about 9 p.m., Xana Kernodle and Ethan Chapin were at the Sigma Chi fraternity house at a party. There was a formal that night, and Ethan went with his two siblings. He was a triplet, so he was there with his two other siblings, and then Xana ended up going to Sigma Chi after for the house party they had. And that is about an estimation on the time based on police reconstruction. Around 10 p.m., we have Kaylee and Maddie. They went to the Corner Club, which was a popular club in Idaho that a lot of students went to. And this is confirmed by both surveillance and witnesses that saw them there. Around 1:30 in the morning, Kaylee and Maddie ended up leaving the Corner Club, and they went around the corner to the Grub truck to order food, and they ended up interacting like normal. There was nothing odd going on. And this is confirmed by CCTV footage, which, Brandon, did we find that footage?
Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and pull it up now while you are going through that.
So at the Grub truck where they were, they ordered food. You can see that on the footage we're going to play shortly. And then also they were seen, there was a guy wearing a hoodie who was a suspect from the very beginning, but ended up being ruled out by the police. And after that, they ended up going home. But the Grub truck was a major point in the case because it's the last live footage we have of Kaylee and Maddie whenever they were out.
So it looks like I have a clip here. It looks like this is... Let's see if this is what we're looking for here. So this is enhanced footage as well. And audio. I think you should have the audio.
So there they are at the Grub truck. They're ordering through the window right there. So as you can see, there's no distress or anything. They are drunk, but they were also out at the club. So that's a little bit to be expected. They interact with some friends that they see out there, but overall, this is the last footage we have of them alive. But they did go everywhere together. They were best friends since they were young.
I'm having a technical issue here. Let me fix
that. That's right. That was pretty much all it was in there. Around 1:45 in the morning, all four victims returned home. Kaylee and Maddie were driven home by a private driver, which we'll talk about a little bit later. That is confirmed by a police interview with that driver. And then we have Xana and Ethan. Around that time, they walked home from the Sigma Chi party. So they went from Sigma Chi, to the King Road house. And that also is confirmed. Around between 1:45 and 2 a.m., it's inferred that Dylan and Bethany, the surviving roommates, also returned home from being out. They were not out together, they were out separately. But around 2 a.m. is when everyone was suspected to be home. And then right before the attack, around 4 a.m., Xana gets a DoorDash delivery and she eats the food in the kitchen. There are some crime scene photos where the food and the trash were left in the kitchen. So we have it confirmed from the DoorDash delivery driver and her phone with the records that she got the food delivered. But we also have those photos of the food left in the kitchen. Around that same time, we have Dylan. She said in her witness statement that she wakes up and she thinks that she hears Kaylee playing with her dog Murphy upstairs. Kaylee was in the floor right above her on the third floor. The house is constructed kind of odd, which we'll pull up that we'll pull up that blueprint in a little bit. Shortly after 4 a.m., Dylan hears someone. So sorry. She believes it's Xana saying there's someone here. That's also inferred based on her witness statement, but it's not confirmed. She's the only one that heard it, and she believes she heard it. She was intoxicated, heavily so. And then the last confirmed victim activity is 4:12 a.m., and it is Xana. She is on her phone on TikTok, and that is confirmed with the digital forensic confirmation. Brandon, do we have the blueprint of the house that you can kind of talk about and go through?
Yeah, I'm gonna pull that up now. We're having technical difficulties out, but that's expected because it's live. We do it live every week.
Beautiful, yes.
So
The house is constructed a bit odd. It's even with a blueprint and even with pictures of it and a video walkthrough, it's still very, very odd how the house is set up. There were 3 floors. However, one of them was set up kind of like a basement. And then the second floor is the main level of the house where the kitchen was, and that's where Dylan's room was. Bethany lived on the first floor, and then Dylan lived on the second, which was also like the kitchen. The top floor was kind of like a living room area. There are crime scene photos and body cam footage where there is like a beer pong table, and then that is where Maddie and Xana's room is. So
this right here is actually a pretty good
representation.
There we go. Sorry.
There we go. Okay.
This is actually a pretty good layout of the house. The house, it's so bizarre, and I feel like this is such a bad thing to say, but this is the kind of house you would expect in a strange crime because it's so hard to understand. Even looking at the crime scene photos, it's hard to like determine where they're looking in the house based on how the house is set up. I'm going to see if I can also pull up a picture of just the house in general. This is a really good representation of the inside, but to kind of understand the outside of it, I'm going to see if I can pull up another one here.
So the sliding glass door, which is actually where the intruder went in. He did not go through the front door. He went in through the sliding glass door, which they had said that the lock on the sliding glass door didn't latch, and everyone has always said that the University of Idaho, and especially the King Road neighborhood, felt like a safe neighborhood, so nobody really locked their doors. It was kind of a come and go, so that wasn't necessarily something out of the normal or something to be concerned about, because a lot of people just had their doors unlocked. But the sliding glass door is where the intruder went in through, which is right next to Xana and Ethan's room. And then Dylan's room is opposite of the kitchen and next to the stairs to go up to Maddie's room and Kaylee's old room, which is actually where Murphy was.
And yeah, you can kind of see in this picture here, it's almost like a split level, like it's on a hill, where that bottom floor, you can kind of see it here, that bottom floor is where the front door is. Although on the side, you have that second door balcony with the door. That's where our perpetrator came in, correct?
Yes.
And then we have that third floor balcony as well.
Which I believe the balcony was part of Kaylee's old room, which is where Murphy was.
Yes.
So Murphy is the mini golden doodle that was Kaylee and her ex-boyfriend Jack, which we'll also talk about him when he talked to the police in a little bit. But yeah, so the house was set up kind of odd, but as you can see here, the sliding glass door was right next to Ethan and Xana's room, and then we have the kitchen on one side of the stairs underneath of Murphy, where Murphy was staying, and then we have Dylan's room, and then that staircase going down is Bethany's room, and then Kaylee and Maddie were staying in Maddie's room on the other side of the stairs. And at the top of the stairs is where the den was. There was a couch, the beer pong table. That's kind of where they had parties there often. That was like the party house, but that is where, if they were inside, that's where the parties were normally held. So around between 4:13 and 4:17 in the morning, Dylan said that she can hear a cry coming from Xana's room, and Dylan also hears a male voice saying, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." It's confirmed by her witness statement, but again, she was intoxicated, which she states in her statements multiple times. And a lot of what she told the police was, "I think I heard this, I'm not sure if I heard this." She thought she was hallucinating a lot of what was going on. And then 4:17 a.m., I'm not sure if we were able to find it, but nearby cameras can hear whimpering, a loud thud, and then a dog barking repeatedly, which is confirmed by that audio evidence. The loud thud is suspected to be Xana falling after she has been killed, and then the dog barking is obviously Murphy, who was spared. He was okay, nothing happened to Murphy. And then around 4:17 to 4:20 in the morning, Dylan opens her bedroom door, which she actually opens it 3 separate times. She thought she heard, she believes Kaylee saying, "I think someone is in the house." And so Dylan opens her door and looks, doesn't see anything odd out of the ordinary, closes her door. Hears Xana crying, which is the room right across from her, so easier to hear. She opens her door, doesn't see anything, closes the door. And then she opens her door a 3rd time around 4:17 to 4:20 in the morning. And she comes face to face with the intruder. He stands right in front of her. She is standing in her doorway. She's frozen. That fight or flight mode kicked in, and she had the 3rd option of being frozen. And then the intruder looks at her and leaves right back out the sliding glass door, doesn't say anything to her, doesn't go towards her to attack, nothing, just leaves. And that is confirmed by her witness statement and obviously her being alive, because she was one of the surviving roommates. Bethany did not hear anything, she stated. She didn't hear any crying. She didn't hear Murphy barking. She was asleep during the whole thing. And after that, there's a lot of text messages that go on between between Dylan and Bethany, and then Dylan trying to get a hold of all of her roommates, which I do have some of those text messages and timestamps of when things went out also. So around 4:19 in the morning, Bethany calls Dylan. And then Dylan calls Xana and Kaylee. No answer at 4:20 in the morning. After that, when she gets no answer, she calls Bethany for about 41 seconds, And then Bethany tries calling Xana. Dylan tries calling Maddie. Bethany tries calling Maddie and Ethan. And then Dylan sends a text message to Bethany that says, "No one's answering, I'm really confused." And then Dylan tries texting everyone saying, "What's going on? Are you awake?" And then Bethany told Dylan Xana was wearing all black because Dylan had said in the phone call that she thought that she saw someone wearing all black. And so Bethany thought it was just Xana. And Dylan told her, "No, it's like a ski mask almost." And then we get a text from Bethany that says STFU, so shut the fuck up. If I can say that.
That's okay. That's okay.
And then Dylan tells Bethany that he had something over his head and a little over his mouth. And so Dylan then says her phone's going to die, and Bethany says to go to her room and run. So that's where that ends up, is Dylan goes down to Bethany's room, and they end up sleeping there after they aren't able to get a hold of anyone around 4:30. So 4:37 in the morning is the last digital forensics we have of them being awake, and it's Bethany being on Instagram. So that's kind of the last that night between the attacks that we have going on.
Okay. The odd thing about this, I guess it kind of ties into the layout of the house. So which room did both of the living girls end up in?
Bethany's on the first floor is where they ended up.
Yeah, so that's what we're looking at here on the bottom floor, Bethany's room.
Which is where the front door actually is.
Yes. Okay.
So it's just, there are a few things that are odd, which we'll talk about inconsistencies in one of the future episodes. Today's just going to be like a general overview, and I have some other documents and statements from the released court records and the police records. I have combed through absolutely everything that has been released to try to find what is best for this episode. So going forwards, there was no 911 call that was made after voices were heard and Dylan saw someone. Nobody called 911. So the next morning at 7:30, Bethany calls her dad. She calls another number, She tries calling her house. She calls her mom. Her dad calls Bethany back at around 8 in the morning. Between 8:05 and 10 a.m., Dylan is on Instagram. Bethany's taking photos at 8:41 in the morning. Bethany's mom texts her. Dylan is on Instagram at 10 a.m. She's on Indeed.com, I guess looking for jobs. She tries texting Maddie again at 10:23. No answers. And then we get a text message from, her name is Jenna, and Jenna is from the sorority that Bethany was a part of. I believe it is Bethany's Big. And she texts Bethany, I guess, to just check in, see how the night out was, and Bethany ends up telling her everything. Dylan is still on Instagram at 11:30 in the morning. She gets on Yik Yak, which Yik Yak was a big thing back in, gosh, I guess it started when I was in college. So
Yeah, that was back when I was in school. Yeah,
about 10 years ago, 2016, 2017 is when it became big. It's basically an anonymous messaging thread where someone can type something out anonymously and then they can comment on that. So that was a big thing in college, but she gets on that. She gets on TikTok at 11:36. She and her dad, Dylan and her dad, text about 11:40. Bethany calls Jenna. Jenna texts Dylan. Dylan's on Instagram. And then Dylan ends up calling. Her name is Emily. And she was also in one of their sororities. It is one of her close friends. And Emily is dating, his name is Hunter Johnson. And Hunter is with Emily at the time. They end up coming over. And there's no 911 call until 11:56 in the morning. So about 7.5 hours went by and before they called 911, and they were on their phones, they were on social media, they were making phone calls, text messages, but nothing to 911. And their roommates, the victims, were dead in their house, in their rooms that whole time. So that's kind of odd.
I do have the 911 call when it's made, if we want to listen to that as well.
Absolutely, yeah.
So when the 911 call was made, this is what was released.
42, 2nd, November 13, 2022.
911 location of your emergency.
Hi, something is happening. Something happened in our house. We don't know what.
What is the address of the emergency?
1122.
What is the rest of the address?
Oh, Kings Road.
Okay. And is that a house or an apartment?
It's a house.
Can you repeat the address to make sure that I have it right?
I'll talk to you guys. We live at the White, so we're next to them.
I need someone to repeat the address for verification.
The address, 1122 King Road.
And what's the phone number that you're calling from?
What's your phone number?
And tell me exactly what's going on.
One of the roommates has passed out, and she was drunk last night, and she's not waking up.
Okay.
Oh, and they saw some man in their house last night. Yeah. Hi, this is.
And are you with the patient? Okay, I need someone to keep the phone. Stop passing it around.
Can I just tell you what happened, pretty much?
What is going on currently? Is someone passed out right now?
I don't really know, but pretty much at 4 a.m.
Okay, I need to know what's going on right now if someone is passed out. Can you find that out?
Yeah, I'll come. Come on, we gotta go check. But we have to. Is he passed out? She's not waking up.
Okay, one moment. I'm getting help started that way.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and how old is she?
She's 20.
20, you said?
Yes, 20. Here's one.
Okay.
Hello? Hello?
Okay, I need someone to stop passing the phone around because I've talked to 4 different people.
Okay, sorry, they just gave me the phone.
Is she breathing?
Hello?
Is she breathing?
And at this point, this is Hunter Johnson.
No.
Okay.
You need to talk to them, okay? I can't talk to them. I need you to talk to them.
Hello.
Okay. I've already sent the ambulance and law enforcement. Stay on the line. If there is a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it.
Say that again? There's a police here right now.
Okay. If there is a defibrillator available, send someone to get it now and tell me when you have it.
We don't have one. I think yes. Do you have a defibrillator? Yes, you have one.
Are you talking to the officer?
Yes.
Okay, I'm going to let you go since he's there with you and can help you.
Okay, thank you. Bye.
Okay.
11:59 a.m. 49 seconds, November 13, 2022.
Interesting things being asked. I always was under the impression after Hunter Johnson had left the house that he had a pretty good idea that they were no longer alive. So I think it was interesting that a defibrillator was asked for. I guess we don't know if Hunter told them that they had expired at that point. Do we know that?
Yeah, so I have the court records of the transcript of the 911 call. And I have also seen I've seen testimonies or I guess depositions, affidavits, that's the word. I've seen affidavits from many of them that were there. So it is kind of odd. Hunter is, whenever they called Bethany and Hunter, or Emily and Hunter, excuse me, they came over to the house and Dylan told them, I think someone was in the house last night, and Hunter went inside. Hunter went in and the first thing he saw was Xana, and he told them to get out of the house. So he went into the room and he saw Xana and Ethan. So it's kind of odd because they just kept saying, she's unconscious, she was drunk last night. They did see all of the blood and they did see all of the wounds that they had. So it's just kind of odd that that's what they kept telling them rather than what actually happened and what they actually saw. So that's kind of odd. So
And also at one point Hunter had checked the pulse of Ethan and Xana.
yes, that was one of the first things he did and determined that there was no pulse.
Okay. Do we know if he went to the third floor?
No.
Okay.
He only stayed on the second floor. He did not go on the third floor until we see it in the body cam footage. So I'm not sure when exactly he went up there, but there is body cam footage of him up on the third floor. And it's just him, but I'm not sure when exactly he went.
Okay. Let me see if I can pull up some of that body cam.
And then I do also have the affidavit of Brett Payne, who was the responding officer. And he kind of talks to, it's pretty much everything that we've said. But
whoa.
It is kind of, there are a lot of inconsistencies and there are a lot of things that just don't add up or make sense. So all of the victims were deceased with visible stab wounds. So it isn't like Hunter saw Xana and wasn't sure what exactly happened to her. They were pretty visible, and she actually was one that was injured the most. So her and Kaylee took the brunt of a lot of the attack, and then Ethan his attack wasn't as brutal as Kaylee's. However, the manner and the areas in which he was attacked were pretty gruesome. And in our opening, in our introduction, we saw some of the blood coming down the side panel of the house, and that is from Xana's room.
So right here I have the body cam footage. Now, from what I could find, there were 4 officers with body cam footage. Is that correct, that you are aware of?
I believe there was 4, yeah.
Okay. This is, I believe this is Brett Payne. This is the officer that was on the scene first. So we can scrub through this a little bit.
Yep. Where's she at? Where's she at?
And this, I guess, this gentleman standing in the doorway is Hunter Johnson.
Yes, that's Hunter Johnson.
Where at? Up here?
And they did come in the front door. So this right here is one of the living rooms, but I do believe they came in through the front door, not the.
So this one would be Xana's room.
Yes.
Okay. Obviously, this is redacted here.
It is redacted, but it was very gruesome.
Okay, get back.
Very awful how, in the manner in which they died and were attacked.
1370.
It is very, very gruesome.
Okay, stay back there, please.
And within this attack, the only 2 that fought back were Xana and Kaylee. The other 2 were passed out drunk.
Slow down. Just come here. There's 2. Looks like fatalities.
You can already hear it in the officer's voice that he's like piecing together what's going on, obviously using expletives.
And I do believe that's why there were only 4 responding officers, is because they were just told that it was an unconscious female who was drunk.
Oh, here, we can kind of pause. We can look at...
Slow down.
Because I know this is a point of contention.
Just come here. There's 2.
I backed up too much. When he leaves, you can see it on the ping pong table. We see it very briefly right here. And it's a kitchen knife, right?
Yes,
it's
that is a kitchen knife, and it is presumed that a K-bar knife was used for the murders. However, I have many thoughts and feelings on this part of it. Many things I have many thoughts and feelings on, which we will go into probably in episode 3. But this is one of them. So there is a kitchen knife just sitting on the ping pong table. And then I'm not sure if we'll be able to see it, but there is more body cam footage as it goes along, and that knife actually disappears whenever Hunter Johnson is upstairs.
All right. Okay. Nobody's allowed to leave for now, okay? Just stay here for me, please.
And this, I guess, those 4, the other 2 roommates, and then who's the gentleman?
I believe that is one of Hunter's friends.
That lived, like, at the house?
Yeah.
Okay.
They all lived right near each other, but Ethan's siblings hadn't showed up yet, and then Kaylee's ex, Jack, had not showed up yet.
Because Ethan's brother lives right down the road in the fraternity house, right?
Correct. Which is in walking distance.
Okay. Here. Can you guys go over to the dumpster for me, please?
But I imagine it was very difficult for these police officers to try to wrangle a bunch of college kids, especially they just kept showing up because this was the party house, so everyone did know the King Road house, which is what it was referred to as. So once word got out from one person, it just kind of spread and everyone started coming over to see what was going on.
Okay. I'll just start down here. Police department.
This is them going in the 3rd floor?
No, because that was the front door. I believe this is Bethany's room.
Oh, okay, so they're just kind of clearing. Interesting that these rooms are redacted. Is there any reason why that you can
I'm not sure why.
speculate
I think it's probably just because this was the initial, and so if there was anything they thought could be evidence or of use, they just redacted a lot of it. Will you go back just a little bit? I want to see the ping pong table. Yeah, so the knife is still there. We can kind of see it in this shot a little bit better.
Okay, yeah, it is there. Yep.
But half the table is set up to play a game of beer pong. The other half obviously looks like someone lost. And then the kitchen knife on the table, which there's really no explanation for that. And it never gets brought up in any of the police reports or anything. There's no mention of anything like this on that table in anything I've been able to see that's been released to the public.
So what's your just like to ice over it, what's your theory to that?
So I believe that there were other individuals involved, and possibly they did not clean up after themselves, forgot that was there. But I do believe there were other individuals involved. They never found the K-bar knife that was used. The knife sheath was left on Maddie and Kaylee's bed next to, I believe, Maddie. But other than that, I briefly, which it'll be a longer episode, but I do believe there were other individuals involved. So they are now on Xana and Dylan's floor. There's the sliding glass door you came in on.
And they came to that open.
Yes, nobody, because Hunter went in the front door when he got there. And now they're going up to the third level, which was where Murphy was, and then also Maddie and Kate.
And Murphy, at this point in time, Murphy's still in the house?
He's still in the house at this point.
Dude.
Yeah, as you can kind of hear through their voice inflection and just their manner of speaking, that this was, they have no words to describe what exactly is going on, because it's so bad, and they were prepared to go and see an unconscious female.
Sorry, I got an ad. We can keep scrubbing through this, though. Let me get back in here.
So even though this happened back in 2022, it has become popular little by little because of all of the court records that were released to the public, all of the police witness statements that were released to the public, the forensics were released.
Taping it all up.
And then also there was never a trial, but the sentencing of the individual who they arrested.
This also, I feel like this case really was like trial by TikTok. This got really big online, really big online. It got a good amount of media coverage, but after everything started to slow down, after they found the suspect, it really died off, but it really kept going on TikTok. And I feel like every couple of weeks I see something else about it on TikTok.
Well, and I do think especially in the beginning, it became a trial by TikTok by Kaylee's sister. So one of Kaylee's siblings, they ended up having to put a gag order on everything because the police were keeping everything hush-hush. They weren't releasing anything. Didn't matter how many times the families called asking for updates. They couldn't release anything because they didn't have anything concrete set in stone. So one of her sisters ended up going to the public, and they hired an attorney, and they went on TV interviews. So she kept it very much so relevant, so that way it didn't just disappear.
house was put it off. I already got in there. Shut it off in there.
Skip ahead a little bit to when they start speaking to the kids.
So that in the blue hoodie, I don't believe that's Hunter Johnson. But over in that corner is Dylan Bethany.
I know she's barefoot, so I was hoping to get some for her, but thank you very much. Thanks, boss.
And I also just want to commend the law enforcement responding, literally walking into the house not knowing what they were walking into necessarily, seeing this scene and coming out with such composure and just kind of signing right in to conduct this investigation, get their witness statements, and it is pretty impressive. Pretty impressive work.
I'm not sure which roommate this is, but he is talking to one of the surviving roommates.
And your first and your middle name? What's a good phone number to reach you?
But you can't really see it because they've blocked off a lot of the driveway, which they had a large parking area. But further down behind the other police officers, there were a lot of students that showed up that were blocked off.
Yeah, word's pretty quick about this this happening.
And the University of Idaho pretty quickly actually sent out a text message to all of their students telling them to lock their doors and stay in their houses, and warning them that something was going on. But they did not specify what.
They did go in there.
Yeah, and that's when he told us he called the cops.
Okay. Do you mind just waiting over there for me, please? Okay. Now I overheard you talking about last night.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, the more we know right now, the better. We can start this process.
Yeah.
Somebody will probably be revisiting this interview with you very soon. Again, okay? So you're probably going to have to retell the story.
That's fine.
All right. What do you remember seeing? What started?
I remember I was in my room and I was trying to go to bed and I heard Kaylee, who ex-girlfriend.
So this is Dylan.
Real fast. Which one is your room?
Kaylee.
Which one is your room?
Oh.
What room are you
Which,
in?
without getting ahead of ourselves.
So Dylan's statement, she's given multiple statements to the police, which again, this will be in episode 3 because I have many thoughts, but her statement changed multiple times, which I understand the first one, you're frazzled, you're scared. I don't understand waiting 7.5 hours to call 911.
You were in that room?
But her statements did change
And your room is this one right
throughout
here?
the police interviews.
Second floor room.
Second floor.
They talked to Dylan for quite a bit.
Okay.
Oh, I heard crying.
Oh, lovely.
So we got a in-studio question of when we see the knife disappear, and I believe it's on another officer's body cam footage, because they released them all at once, but the one that we saw, I think, is Brett's.
Until 4 a.m.
Okay. All right. I don't think I have any more questions for you right now.
Okay.
Somebody else will be talking to you.
Sounds good.
So let's grab that. Let's go back over there.
Okay.
All right. Who else lives here? I get your last name, please?
So I believe now he is getting the information for Bethany.
Okay. Hey.
His brother's walking up this way.
Okay, do you mind hanging out here, please?
But if you heard how chaotic the 911 call was, with them passing the phone around and all of that, that's pretty much how it was when they responded also.
This gentleman coming up in the orange, red here, do we know who that is? Is that...
I am not sure. I do know that Kaylee's ex-boyfriend Jack came. He got a message saying that something happened at the King Road house. So he did come over. And when he explained that his ex-girlfriend lived there, he was put in the back of a patrol car for about 45 minutes going through where he was the night before, which I do have that police statement, where he was the night before, his relationship with her, and all of that, which I do have that statement if you want me to go over that a little bit.
Sure.
So Jack was also at the corner club the night before, and he did see Kaylee. He got there at around 11 p.m. He saw Kaylee. He said he left around 1 a.m. And they had asked him in the back of the patrol car who he thought would be responsible for committing the crime. And he said that he saw the video from Grub Truck, which is the one that we saw, and there seemed to be a guy following Kaylee and Maddie from the area at the Grub Truck to when they went home, which they referred to that gentleman as Hoodie Guy for quite some time until they discovered his identity, but he, again, was cleared by police. He had nothing to do with anything with them. And then he did state, so there are a lot of records from the night before that start around 1 a.m., I guess, and it is text messages that Kaylee was sending to Jack. So it's a bunch of text messages and phone calls that Kaylee was sending to Jack, and she sent her last text message to Jack at around 2:15 in the morning. And then the police said to Jack in the back of the patrol car that there appeared to be a phone call at 2:26 a.m., and that phone call lasted about 17 minutes. And Jack said that he did not recall answering the phone. He could not tell them what that phone call was about. He said maybe he accidentally hit the button to answer the phone call and fell asleep, but he had no explanation for it. And then he also explained that he was a co-owner of the Mini Golden Doodle Murphy. And a few months later, the police asked if he would bring Murphy to the police station so that they could take samples of his fur. So they did question Jack. They did ask about his whereabouts, and they asked about all of the text messages and phone calls that Kaylee had sent to him as well.
Let me see what else I got here for you. Let me see if I can find another body cam.
While you're looking for that, I will say I also have the statement from the driver that took Kaylee and Maddie home from the Grub Truck. So this driver got a text message from Kaylee at about 1:45 in the morning asking to be picked up. And the driver said that he drove the two girls directly from the Grub Truck to their house, and that Kaylee was a little more intoxicated than Maddie, which is a little odd given the series of events that happened in their murder. Kaylee was murdered pretty much beyond recognition, whereas Maddie was murdered, but not nearly as bad. The driver said that there were 4 cars parked in the driveway and that he watched the girls go into the house. And he said that their state of inebriation was pretty standard, so nothing out of the ordinary for him. The weird thing is this driver drove for both Lyft and Uber. However, he said that for some people, he gave off the books drives, meaning that he did not drive them managed through either Lyft nor Uber. He just would get a text message from them saying, hey, can you pick me up? They took him. And then after that, he said that sometimes they would pay him right away and sometimes they wouldn't, but they would pay him the following day. So he did do quite a bit of off the books driving, which is kind of odd. I'm not sure if that was a way to get around, maybe for filing tax purposes, or he got more money because Uber and Lyft didn't take out money from the drives. So I'm not quite sure what that was about, but he was interviewed and he was cleared as well.
Nice. So the body cam I'm finding not fabulous. It's not gonna be too usable for us because it's a lot of different commentary.
I think Brett Payne's was the
I think that was the most
He was the
compelling
main
one anyway. Yeah, absolutely. Not diving too much into conspiracy. I know we want to do a whole episode on that. The whole crime itself, I don't know if we talked about that, was how many minutes long?
I believe, let me pull up that timeline again. The attack window was between 4:13 and 4:20 a.m.
That's crazy.
So less than 10 minutes. So if we think about it, stabbing is one of the more extenuating murders that someone can commit. It takes a lot of effort. It is not easy as we may think, to actually go through the skin's barrier further into where it could murder someone. So having to do it that quickly as one person is pretty crazy. He really went from room to room to room. It is said that he started with Kaylee and Maddie, and then as he was going downstairs, there are different theories, but presumably to exit, he saw Xana, and Xana ran back to her room, and that is when her and Ethan died, which goes into a conspiracy I have and many thoughts of why he would see the surviving roommate Dylan and look at her and then walk away. But there is also some inferred theories that after he attacked Xana and Ethan, he sat down and caught his breath because he was so out of breath from everything, which would lessen the time of the actual murders as well.
Right. So I find it interesting that they, and I don't want to get ahead of ourselves here because we really could open up Pandora's box here. They really think one person did this in several minutes. I always was going by the narrative. You've kind of sold me on some other ideas. Mm-hmm. But it's definitely interesting to try and pin, especially the person that they believe they have or had at the time, with how they are built, was able to commit these crimes. So it's very interesting to think about.
Which I do have the victim ID or the witness ID of the perpetrator, which will kind of close us out and then bring us as a cliffhanger to episode 2, which will be all about the suspect. So Dylan gives her interview multiple times. There are multiple interviews with Dylan of who she saw and the description. And I will say at least 7 different times, the only thing she can describe is the eyebrows, which that is very infamous. The eyebrows are what he was caught on, other than a few other circumstances, but it was mainly the eyebrows that got the physical description of him. So the first interview she gave, she says that it was almost like she was wearing blurry glasses, which she was intoxicated, but she said it was fuzzy and cloudy, but it was a figure wearing all black. They had a ski mask that was covering their forehead, their chin, and their mouth, and all she remembers seeing is their eyebrows. I don't remember the color the eyebrows were, I just remember like bushy eyebrows. And she said it wasn't a regular ski mask, it was a weird looking ski mask, more rectangular is how she described it. She said she doesn't remember what his eyes looked like, only the eyebrows. Again, doesn't exactly remember what the eyebrows looked like, just the eyebrows. Doesn't remember the shape nor the color. And then she said, I feel like that's how I know he saw me, because if I could see his eyebrows, he can see me. And she said that he was walking past that little wall and going towards the kitchen. I just remember seeing an eyebrow. I don't know why, I just see one. It was just like one bushy eyebrow. And then she did say he was a skinnier tone build, basketball, tone, lean. And she said, I don't know how, I just knew it, but he was white. So she didn't actually recall seeing his skin color, but she said she just knew. And she said she just knew it was male. About her height, so about 5'10" is the description she gave.
Interesting. We definitely have a lot more to break down in our episode 2 and episode 3. So it's definitely going to get interesting really fast.
A lot more to come.
So much to come. Thank you everyone for bearing with our technical issues. I want to thank you, Taylor, for being on today. We're looking forward to having you on in the future, as well as for our next couple episodes as well.
I'm very excited. Thank you everyone for watching. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a good time. Thank you, Taylor.
Of course.
The next episode of Idaho 4 Murder, the Idaho 4 Murders miniseries airs live next Monday at 8 p.m. Eastern Time. We look forward to seeing you both then. Thank you for spending a little bit of your evening with us here today. As always, make sure to subscribe down below and hit the bell notification in the description to be notified every time we are live. Veiled Mysteries is live every Monday at 8 p.m. in the East, 7 p.m. in the Mid-Region, and 6 p.m. on the West. Make sure to follow me on Instagram at Veiled Mysteries Pod for updates and to stay in touch. If you have a true crime case or a conspiracy theory you'd like to see us cover, feel free to email or message me at veiledmysterytips@gmail.com. As always, ask questions, stay curious, and be informed. I'm Brennan Ward. Have a good night.
Due to the heinous nature of the crime discussed in this episode, this program may not be suitable for all audiences. This episode will include
tells you more than words reveal. Something makes you understand. It is different, it is real. Love makes some but one, so don't deny.